So we think of intentional community as an umbrella term to describe ecovillages, co-housing, housing cooperatives, all of these different forms or expressions of intentional community. And an intentional community is a group of people who live together or share resources that have come together on the basis of explicit common values. So very often intentional communities are places where a group of people got together and said, we want to create a community that has this purpose, maybe a mission statement, these values, and we're only going to welcome in members who share that underlying intention as we do.
This is the Regenerative Real Estate Podcast. Revitalizing the world together. Welcome to the Regenerative Real Estate Podcast. This is your host, Neil Collins. It is a show that is supported by our work at Latitude Realty. In it, we explore our natural and built environments and how they can be used as a force for good. The show sets out to inspire impactful ideas, meaningful change, human wellness, and ecological restoration through interviews and easy-to-digest conversations. Our guests range from industry leaders to iconoclasts, from both well-known figures to everyday people leading extraordinary lives. This is a show for people looking for education and inspiration on how real estate can be done differently. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Regenerative Real Estate Podcast. We got a real treat for you today, a real treat for myself. We've got Cynthia Tina, who is the co-director of the Foundation for Intentional Community. Cynthia, welcome.
Thank you so much, Neil. Hey, everyone. It's great to be here.
Hey, I think a really great jumping off point is just to tell me where you are, because for those that can't see the video of this, you've got this like really rich wood millwork behind you, and there's beautiful fall foliage going on. So let's start there.
Yeah, so I am calling in from Vermont, traditional Abenaki land. And I'm in a house that my family actually built. It's a timber frame home, and I'm not in the place where I'm living most of the time these days, trying to, at Headwaters Ecovillage, which is a small intentional community in central Vermont, and that's where I'm building my house. Which will also be a naturally built home. And I feel very fortunate to get to spend time at my family's place while I'm working on the house. So I don't need to be there all the time, and I can take a break. But yeah, it's beautiful fall foliage time here in Vermont. I feel so blessed to live in this place.
One of those places that's notorious in the world for the fall foliage. Where did you grow up in Vermont? Was this the spot that you grew up in this house, or is this someplace that you sought out over the years?
I grew up north of Boston in the suburbs of Greater Boston. And my aunt and uncle had a place in Vermont that we would take trips growing up. And I fell in love with Vermont. I reflect to myself, I feel like Vermont was one of my first great loves. And I thought that I would end up here eventually. It took many years of traveling, trying out living in different places, and then coming back to Vermont and building up more of a base here. And then 2 or 3 years ago, I made the decision that this is where I wanted to put down roots, and did a community search. I knew I wanted to live in community. And so I actually used the communities directory that our organization puts together as my main tool, and then went about visiting different communities and eventually settled on one that felt like a good fit for me.
What do you think resonated, or what were you looking for, and how did you end up at Headwaters?
Yeah, great question. So I had a pretty clear list of what I wanted. I knew that I wanted to be close to my family. So ideally in this area in Vermont. I knew I wanted to be able to build my own home. This has been a lifelong dream. And actually, not many intentional communities enable you to build your own home. Most of them, you're buying a home or a dwelling that's already been built. So I knew I wanted that, and I wanted there to be families around and creative people, good conversation, a group that's open to me being away some of the time because of my travel schedule. I knew I wanted like quite specific things, like I wanted Wi-Fi, I wanted access to water, I wanted beautiful gardens, something with a permaculture focus, and then going about and visiting these communities and comparing them to the list of things I had already figured out for myself. And that's what I recommend for other people out there who are thinking about joining a community, is first get really clear on what you yourself want in your life, want in a community.
Well, how many did you have to? I know that you did a lot of traveling when you were younger, but how many communities did you look at, let's say in the Vermont, New England region, before you really said, you know what, this is going to be the place?
Mm-hmm. Well, I, of course, was already ahead of the game because I had visited so many intentional communities just in other places. And so I feel like I didn't have to maybe visit as many as I would recommend someone else do who's like new to this concept. I felt like, maybe I visited 3 or so, and after doing my online research, and then kind of quickly it was like, oh yeah, this is a place where they have good things going on. This is where I want to be. And I think I had already previously visited maybe more communities here in Vermont and New England. So yeah, I was ahead of the game, fortunately.
And why do you think it is that the intentional community that you're in, like, was there many dwellings already, or was there just more land and they're looking at expansion?
Yeah, so this community got started 10, 11 years ago. And there was a certain number of home sites in the plan, 8 home sites in total. And so slowly, as the community has grown, people have gone through the membership process and decided to purchase one of these home sites. So I was, I think number 6, and then someone else joined more recently, and now we have 1 home site left in the community. So that's how we've had our development process.
And do you buy the particular parcel, or are you buying into an HOA or what, or a collective structure? What's the legal, not to lose a lot of the audience on the technicalities and the legalities here, but like what does that look like?
Yeah. So all intentional communities are organized differently. In our community, we are structured as a condominium association. And so that's sort of the legal structure for our land and our community. And within that, we have different home sites, which are essentially lots, but we call them home sites because we're trying to foster a model of communal land ownership. So I purchased the lot and I have a deed title to the lot where my home is being built. And then within the community, we have an agreement that I only have control 25 feet in circumference around my house. That's where I can do whatever I want. Then the other land beyond that, I need to, talk to the community, make more group decisions about what happens with that land.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. Yeah. And for people listening, they're all different. let's underscore that point. And Cynthia, maybe this is a good opportunity that we can even dial it back a little bit further in time. What was really those moments that spurred you into traveling to a lot of different intentional communities in the world? Was that something that your parents wanted you to go off and do, or is that study abroad? Or what does that look like? I'm really curious. There's not a lot of people that I've met have said, if I'm going to travel, I'm going to go seek out different intentional communities around the world.
Yeah. I grew up a pretty normal, average kind of American life in the suburbs. Actually went to Catholic private school for a lot of my younger years and did not have friends who shared any of my interests or passions. And I don't know what it was. I think just maybe spending a lot of time in nature got me curious about the environment where I was living, just feeling this really strong connection to nature as a kid, spending a lot of time in the woods. And then later that morphed into getting interested in gardening, growing my own food, then processing and preserving food, then growing medicine, and kind of, and reading a lot of books. Gosh, reading has opened my eyes to new cultures, new ways of thinking about things, new ways of life. And then when I was 15, I told my folks that I wanted to go to a place called Turtle Island in North Carolina. That was my first intentional community experience. And I would say my parents are very supportive. They haven't always understood, certainly not then, like, why does she want to go here? What's this about? Later, I told them I wanted to go to East Africa and work with farmers and permaculturalists there. Fortunately, I've had their support and been really privileged in that way, even if they haven't totally always understood. So yeah, and then I think just, pursuing those experiences, looking for places and people who inspire me, and then getting to travel to more and more places, meet people, grow a network. I'm filling in a lot of time here, but then eventually turning this into a career and getting involved with organizations that are also supporting the intentional communities network.
What did that look like to go from, like, were you looking at, let me even dial it back. I'm going to earmark this question in my mind, but if you're traveling around and you wanted to go seek out intentional communities, was there a resource at the time that you were looking at that, like a directory that you have now at FIC, or were you just having to go off of a travel guide, or what was your resource then to find these communities?
So the IC directory certainly existed at the time. I don't think I knew about it. Like I said, my original passion was really around nature connection, food, permaculture. And so I think those are all great. I don't know, I like to think of them as parallel movements alongside the intentional community movement. And so what I found is when you are getting involved in some of those initiatives, it's sort of like you naturally meet people and hear about other opportunities. So I don't think I had a formal concept of intentional communities or even eco-villages when I was younger. It was more so like, so I went to Goddard College for some of my study, which is a low residency school here in Vermont. However, you're only on the campus for 2 weeks each semester, and you design your own curriculum. So I said, I want to study, permaculture. I think that was the first thing that I did for my original semester. And I want to go to Europe. I went to Greece, actually, to check out some innovative things that were happening there, stumbled into an intentional community, learned about that concept, then made my way down Greece, over to Italy, slowly up to Switzerland, where I attended an Ecovillage conference. And that's really where I got involved in the formal network and became part of an organization called NextGen, which is the youth network within the Ecovillage movement. And I got elected to a leadership position. And then, now I have a role. Then when I came back to the US, being able to connect with other people who are in similar leadership positions. And of course, they all live at intentional communities, go travel and visit them and and pursue this path from there.
Wow, that's incredible. What a great backstory to really evolve into the career that you had a passion around. We've actually talked about two different terms that maybe this is a great point to talk about defining some of these terms that we're using. Because you've now mentioned intentional community as well as eco-village. Mm-hmm. So if you were to meet somebody on the street, how do you really set the container for intentional communities and eco-villages and kind of the myriad of different community-oriented living projects that exist?
Yeah. So we think of intentional community as an umbrella term to describe ecovillages, co-housing, housing cooperatives, all of these different forms or expressions of intentional community. And an intentional community is a group of people who live together or share resources that have come together on the basis of explicit common values. So very often intentional communities are places where a group of people got together and said, we want to create a community that has this purpose, maybe a mission statement, these values, and we're only going to welcome in members who share that underlying intention as we do. And so that's kind of the common denominator for all of these places. It's not like a retirement community. This is places where there is very intentionally a specific culture and lifestyle that's been cultivated. And then Ecovillage is one type of that. And so ecovillages tend to be focused on striving towards this goal of sustainability or regeneration. And not only ecological sustainability, also economic sustainability, cultural, social, trying to create human settlements that are full-featured and supportive of all the needs that we have as humans. And it's a big goal. Most ecovillages are sort of in the process of working towards that. They're usually at some stage in that process. There's no perfect ecovillage out there, at least that I know.
With the shared values, with the intention on the common value, I would imagine that's going to run the gamut of what those values are. Do you have any examples? Maybe some of the obvious ones that I could probably imagine, but any that really stand out that you're like, I'm going to remember this, of just some kind of memorable communities that rally behind whatever theme. Mm-hmm. Do you have any examples like that?
Yeah, I have so many examples. Gosh, and it really does run the gamut. So we have in our network Bruderhof communities, which are traditional Christian communities where the women, like the Amish, they wear long dresses, they wear caps, and they have this very deep religious intention behind the formation of their community. Then we have, on the other end of the spectrum, perhaps, we have communes where the men in these communes walk around in skirts, like totally deconstructing any societal, norms, where everyone who lives in the community also works in the community. This is an income sharing place. That's what commune means, income sharing. So we have those in our network, maybe a small percentage, about 10% or so of the communities in our network. We have co-housing communities, which feel very mainstream. You may enter into a co-housing community as like, oh, this feels like just like a neighborhood, like the neighborhoods used to feel like, and everything in between. So it is so diverse and beautifully diverse.
Hey everybody, this is Neil. We are going to get back to this great conversation in just 1 second. But I think it's fair to say that right now we are facing some pretty unprecedented challenges in the 21st century. I mean, you name it, environmentally, socially, economically, we've got some big problems that we need to overcome. And that's why, for me personally, and the people that work with us at Latitude, we want to dedicate our time and our energy so that we are not only working to put food on the table and a roof over our heads, but also make the world a better place. And so if you are at all interested in combining your sustainability values with a very powerful financial model of real estate, then I highly encourage you to check out what we are doing at Latitude. We are creating something truly special with a tribe of change agents that for now is working across North America. And hopefully one day in the future, with you coming on board, we can be working across the globe. So please check us out. You can go to www.chooselatitude.com, or you can find us on social media at latitude.realty on Instagram, and we are also on Facebook. Okay, let's get back into it. Do you find that is this mainly rural or peri-urban, or I know that there's co-housing, that it's really springing up a lot in urban cores, but do you see like an eco-village in an urban context?
Yeah, there are eco-villages in urban contexts. For example, Los Angeles Eco-Village in California is an eco-village. They have that intention of trying to be as ecological as possible, but within their context, which is urban. There's about, maybe, I don't have a solid number, but my sense is it's about 50-50 rural and urban communities, and then also some suburban as well.
Is there a size that you think is quite conducive for an intentional community? Like one person, it's hard to call that a community, but like, is there, to be a legitimate intentional community, do you have to have a certain number of people?
We define 2 stages of community development, and there's a lot of stages, but in terms of our directory, there's forming communities, which have fewer than 3 people and have been around for fewer than 2 years. And then an established community has 4 or more residents and has been established for longer than 2 years. So that's kind of like the 3, 4. Okay, now you're starting to really have a community. There's intentional communities like Oroville in India with 3,000 residents who live there. It's arguably the largest intentional community in the world. And then very small ones like my community, where we have a dozen or so members. Most communities tend to be small and have an intention to get bigger. But yeah, it ranges.
So one of the interesting things, right? I see a lot of overlap with your work and with what we see at Latitude, is that a lot of people come to us and say, I want to build an eco-village, or I want to create a community. And my first resource that I give them is, like, you need to go to ic.org and find a community and then search their website, because that might be a little bit quicker to get you to where your goal is. But I know that you've had matchmaking services. You've got this map, you've got a directory on the website. What do you say when people are coming to you saying, I love this concept and I really want to build this?
Similar to what you shared, telling them to go visit one first. I think we all have that kind of, at times, like the visionary impulse, like, oh, I really want to create this. And it's sort of like, yeah, we have a vision for something that we want to build because we think it's totally unique. But oftentimes people are surprised. Oh, wait, there's already groups out there that maybe not exactly the idea I was going for, but pretty similar. And they're like a few decades ahead of me. Maybe I should go there and learn from them first, and then maybe decide if I want to then create my own project. Because it's way, way easier to join a community than it is to start one. Starting one is typically a multi-year endeavor, 2 to 7 years. We've noticed on average to really get a community off the ground, and most intentional communities fail. Many fail within the first few years. It's not an easy thing to not only create, essentially a business, but bring together a group of people who have probably never lived together before, getting to make decisions together, then overcoming whatever legal barriers, zoning issues, doing a fundraising process. It's pretty significant. So much better off finding a community that's a better fit for you if one exists already.
Yeah. Okay. This is kind of swapping notes, because this is where we can, I think, really triangulate down on the advice that we're giving. Because as I see it, I love the enthusiasm that people, they want to live in community. They want to live closer to nature. They want to, like the values that they're coming with are amazing. And to be purpose-led on the environment that you want to live in, I'm all for. But being a part of those projects where you've not only got zoning to overcome, which I think is often pretty startling for people to realize that a lot of the zoning code, even in rural areas, are agricultural and single family dwelling zonings, or they're recreational based, and what you want to do is illegal by code. But then there's just so much whenever it comes to the amount of money that it takes to pull something like that off. And where do you get the money? And if you have no track record and no money, then it becomes exponentially harder to really get into that. And I'm not trying to discourage anybody that is listening, that if you don't have any experience and you don't have any financial resources, that you can't do it. I'm just saying there is a site out there that you may want to visit and go check out.
Mm-hmm. And to that point, if this is something you want to explore more, we do have great resources on ic.org, including several online courses, one in particular called Starting an Intentional Community, which I think of as like 101 if you're wanting to pursue this path to really get your eyes wide open and get more resource so that you have a better chance of success.
Let's talk about ic.org, and really, you get a lot going on with that website. It's kind of unbelievable. I actually use it as inspiration, where I'm like, what are they not doing in this space? I've seen some great courses and workshops, but how about just the high 30,000 foot view of everything that you do offer for folks that are interested in intentional community?
Mm-hmm. Well, the heart of the website is the directory. So we have more than 1,000 intentional communities listed on the directory, large, small, urban, big, small, everything. And each community has their own listing profile, as well as their contact information, key statistics. So it's just a great resource for getting to experience different communities and get a flavor for the movement overall. And then we have our bookstore, which carries different titles related to intentional community. We have a classified advertisement program where communities will list housing opportunities, like if they have an apartment to rent in a community, then you could see that there. And then, as you mentioned, these online events, which have just been tremendous. We have 2 to 3 online events every week. So offering workshops with different experts in the field of intentional communities, networking events. I do a wonderful event called Virtual Tour of Communities, where we sit down once a month with 3 different communities, really diverse ones, and have them give us a virtual tour. And then, of course, the online courses. So for those of you who want to deepen into this movement and maybe around a particular skill, we have an online course just on conflict resolution. How do you resolve conflict in intentional communities? Such an important skill, because conflict happens a lot in communities. Happens anytime, any place, but including in community. So those are the things that we're offering now. We have some projects in the works currently that hopefully will be up and running next year. But yeah, those are the main things.
What's great is that we actually get to see, and why I think we have a privileged view of you coming on the show is you get to look at website analytics, I'm sure, and you get to see what's happening with the directory and what people are you increasing numbers? Is this fringe where like a couple visitors a month are coming? Can you speak to that of really just the trends that you're seeing?
Great question. Yeah. So sometimes it's surprising to people, but we have on average 40 to 50,000 unique visitors every month. So this is not fringe. This is a lot of website traffic. And I think part of that is because of the directory. Like if you type in, I don't know, Portland communities or Portland Ecovillages, you're going to see some of our community listings come up in Google search. And that's great because through that domain authority, we're able to give more visibility to these communities. That's a big intention of our organization, is to help to uplift this movement. And we have seen the traffic increasing, as well as our social media channels increasing engagement. I think that it's due to a number of factors. Certainly the pandemic has shaken up a lot of people's lives and unfortunately created a lot of loneliness. We were already in the midst of a loneliness epidemic, and then this as well. So people maybe have the space and the inclination to explore other options for how to live and are more actively seeking out community right now.
40 to 50,000 unique visitors is unbelievable.
It's great. Yeah.
What do you think are some of the key terms, or what are people searching for? Are you doing ads? Like what drives the sheer amount of people? And as you can probably tell, I'm a bit flabbergasted by that number because it just is so high. Like, what are you doing to attract that many folks? Is it paid or is this all organic?
So we owe a huge debt of gratitude to our forefathers and mothers in FIC who purchased IC.org really early in the website game. We've had this same URL for decades now, and so I think part of it is just that, having a really short, very authoritative domain name in terms of SEO speak. And then through the directory, having so many well-curated pieces of content just through the communities themselves listing on the website and people coming to visit the communities. Like that is primarily where people are coming. They're not always necessarily coming to our homepage. It's to the page of a specific community. And for many communities, they don't have a website and they don't like Facebook. And we are the way that they get attention in the online space. We do some, we actually don't put any money into our Google ads. We're a nonprofit, so we get a certain number of free ad spend. And then, we're building up our social media presence, but I would say that most of our traffic is coming through organic search. Surprisingly, commune is a very popular search term. I think that a lot of people who are thinking about something like intentional community are sort of like, okay, so something the hippies did in the 50s and 60s, are those places still around? And what were they called? Oh, communes. Let's see if they're still around. So that's a common one. And
I love that. That's great. How about some others? I'm really curious to think that if commune is ranking in the top, do you find that people know the term intentional community, or are they coming in through a different permutation of stringing together, ecological utopia or whatever it may be?
You're making me so curious to like dig back into the data and see if anything has changed. But intentional community and communities is quite common as well. Yeah, so I think it's a term that people are somewhat familiar with. Maybe also it's an up and coming term, hopefully. But also co-housing, eco-village. And then a lot of the traffic comes through more specific, like community and then location. Community San Francisco or, communes, Georgia, like more location-based terms are quite common because these are actual places that people are looking for.
Do you see the number of communities changing? Is that growing? Is that or shrinking?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the number of communities in our directory is growing. That's the trend, has been for a while. However, it fluctuates a lot. Like we have a lot of new community listings that then drop off. And it's not comprehensive. Like there are a number of communities on the top of my mind that are well established and are not listed in our directory. We don't do much active recruitment. It's something we'd like to build the capacity to do more of, to encourage these communities to get on our directory. But for a lot of them, it's sort of their choice. Maybe they don't want to maintain their public presence as strongly for whatever reason. And also I want to mention, we are not the only game in town. There's other organizations like ecovillage.org or cohousing.org. They have their own maps of communities. And it's interesting that we don't always have the same communities listed. They might have some communities we don't have and vice versa. So one of the long-term projects in this movement is to bring together or at least share data amongst these different maps.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, so I've got two juicy questions for you. The first one is, what would be one piece of advice that you would give to communities that have already formed that you might have picked up over the years in visiting many different intentional communities, of like, if they really wanted to have the longevity behind them and to make it a prosperous and healthy and robust and resilient community? Is there a common thread there that you would recommend to somebody?
Oh, wow. Well, I want to start by saying those established communities are some of my greatest teachers. And I learn a lot from them about what's working and not working. It feels a little awkward for me to tell them, do this or that. I don't know. What could I say? I've noticed that communities with really healthy conflict resolution, or even, I don't even want to say that, cultures of openness around tensions and naming tensions and relieving them, a culture of giving and receiving feedback, a culture where the community is open to being in that inquiry together around how do we address our dynamic? What is our dynamic? Seeing it, naming it, having that self-awareness as a collective. Those communities are better able to, maybe prevent conflict, or even when conflict happens, move beyond it in a more graceful way and a faster way as well. Because I have a friend who's a wonderful, wonderful permaculturalist, and she says, rarely in community is it the gray water system that's broken. It's the people. Those people problems are often the thing that hinders a community. Because sure, you had mentioned earlier, okay, zoning's a challenge, fundraising is a challenge, but a creative group of people cooperating well together, they can overcome a lot of challenges. But when that cooperation gets distorted and there aren't processes to facilitate the relieving, the healing of a conflict or tension, that's where it gets really bogged down and can, unhinge the community.
Oh, that's great. That is great. So the next question is, what is a perennial book that you find yourself recommending to people that are really interested in community, living in community, or eco-villages? What any kind of flavor under the sun that hits that theme? Is there a title that you like to recommend and pass around?
Well, there's two wonderful books written by Diana Leaf Christian. One is for community founders. One is for people who want to join a community. The one for community founders is Creating a Life Together. And the one for seekers is Finding Your Community. And, both books are a little dated. We're actually at FIC envisioning new editions or updated versions of these titles, but still, I think they are the classics for getting nuts and bolts information about how you go from where you are now through the various steps to end up in community.
Excellent. No, those are great resources. I've read one of those. I haven't read the one for the seekers. And what an interesting concept, Cynthia. I think it's just truly extraordinary to know that your organization exists and it's existed for a long time. And I'm really rooting for where you want to build and grow to, and just think that the wind is at your back right now. Oh. And what a treat to have you come on. I really appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun. Okay, everyone, that is a wrap. Thank you so much for tuning in to another great episode. If you're not already a subscriber, please do so wherever you get your podcast. You can create good karma by leaving a review on Apple Podcast or sharing this show with your friends. If you're looking for ways to get more involved in the regenerative real estate movement, then you are in luck. We have a Facebook community conveniently called Regenerative Real Estate that you can join and be a co-creator with us on this journey. If you have a business or organization that you feel is aligned with our mission to use real estate as the catalyst for a regenerative future and would like to work together, then please be sure to get in touch. We are building an ecosystem to help amplify your work and message, where you can present to our community or sponsor the work that we are doing. You can do this by reaching out to us at team@chooselatitude.com. Last, and certainly not least, this podcast is enabled by the people that buy and sell real estate with us through our network of Latitude regenerative change agents located across North America. Our goal is to help transform homes and habitats, person by person, property by property. And we do that by combining the skills of a real estate professional with sustainable and regenerative consultation. It is time that we all start to live our values, and we hope to work with you on your next real estate sale or purchase. Okay, that is all for now. In the words of Paul Hawkins, remember that we are either stealing our future or healing our future. We are hard at work trying to do the latter. So until next time, be well.